Good greetings for this Saturday. I think it's the morning. I tend to pay little attention these days, so good morning, hello. Welcome to everybody who's joining me live here on Facebook, and if you're listening on YouTube or on the podcast or you're watching just afterwards somewhere on Instagram, a big warm welcome to you as well. You're so welcome to be here, so welcome to receive this transmission. I think that if you've been following me for a while, hey Beck, nice to have you here. If you've been following me for a while, you probably noticed a little bit of a theme. Typically, I tend to talk about things that have happened in my life. So when I'm going through certain experiences, when I'm experiencing heavy stuff in my life, when I'm experiencing lessons of life, I tend to then talk about them because the way in which I transmute those experiences, the way in which I deal with it psychologically or mentally or emotionally, spiritually for myself, very often comes with a whole bunch of lessons that I'm learning for myself in the process, that as a collection of my experiences, I tend to bring it forth. And so today's transmission comes to you. You may have read in the comments already in my post that I had written that recently I've received some pretty nasty comments about myself, and received some comments, some feedback, some reflections on who I am and what kind of person that I am from people that are around me. So what I wanted to reflect upon today is how important it is that when people hurt us, how they need more love. Because our instant reaction very often is from an egoic point of view. And if you don't know necessarily what I mean by that, what I mean by ego is it's kind of like our small self. It's the self-talk. It's the chatter in our head. The chatter in our head wants to defend us. Our ego wants to defend us so passionately. If you are listening and you've done any of my courses or worked with me and you know about the ego, give me a thumbs up, give me a heart. If you've done any kind of ego work in general, let me know. The ego is our smallest self. It's the most immature and dormant part of our soul. The ego is the one that's going to react really badly to things. It's the one that's going to have emotional outbursts. It's the thoughts in your head that make you go, I don't want to be here, you suck, you're awful. They may say that to other people, your ego, or it's internalized, so you start to feel really crappy about yourself. If you have had any experience of people giving you really strong negative feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Type away, let me know. What have people said to you in the past where your ego has reacted? Because your ego reacts when you want to defend yourself. Like, nah, that's not true. And go through point by point by point. And my ego has wanted to do this. The 3 comments that I shared with you, yeah, thank you, thumbs up, hey Joni. The 3 comments that I had put on the original post of this live transmission were just a very small window of the vitriol that I received from a person recently. And there was a lot to it. And my ego just wants to defend. My ego wants to fight. My ego wants to say, screw you, you can't, that's awful. You're mean and you're horrible. And there's going to be a time and a place for that. Don't get me wrong. This conversation here that I want to share with you is why people who hurt us deserve more love, not less. And that seems madness, right? Madness, that when somebody can be that hurtful and that painful and that almost violent and aggressive with their words, or even in their actions, that they might deserve more love. It almost seems like I'm leading us towards a sense of passivity, where we might be passive about the people who hurt us rather than actually being proactive and stopping them. It goes both ways here. This conversation is so important because when people hurt us, certainly when people hurt us intentionally, because we all hurt each other. In this example of the person I'm referring to, I hurt them really heavily as well. Not intentionally necessarily, but hurt them nonetheless. We've all hurt people. If you think that you've never hurt somebody, think again, because of course you have. Somebody's in therapy today because of you. At some point in your life, you've hurt somebody enough to kind of send them into a bit of a spiral. So that's true in and of itself. When people hurt us with intention, when they continue to hurt us, when the relationship becomes quite toxic, if we do not set healthy boundaries, then we are hurting ourselves. That's super important. And when I say that the people who hurt us deserve more love, not less, we really need to take into factor that I'm going to talk about boundaries and how important that is, and that this is not about us just being like, oh, I welcome everything that comes to me, love and light all the time, nothing can hurt me, nothing can affect me, I'm just going to let everybody do whatever the hell they want to me. That's not useful. It's not self-care and it's not self-love. When people hurt us, they're hurting. Full stop. They're human. If we can begin to kind of unravel the egoic part of ourselves and the ego part that says, hey, I really want to defend myself, this person sucks, they're awful. When we kind of get that little voices inside of our heads where we just want to attack the other person, we're in our ego. And we can have very little compassion and love when we're in ego. If we decide that we are going to just bite back to people, if we're going to invest in what the trap that they're trying to get us into, it's like people who are hurting us, and particularly with their words, they're trying to get us on the hook. Like they're fishing around to get a reaction from us, and if we bite and then bite back, it's exactly what they want. It's like their body of pain wants my body of pain to react to them. Yeah, Joni says hurt people, healed people, heal people. Yeah, and here's the thing. It's not our responsibility to heal other people. I love this, Joni. It is our responsibility to continue to be more love, continue to be more compassionate. And that might be from a distance. In fact, very often it will be from a distance. Because if people are hurt and they're not dealing with their own hurt and they're hurting you and they're deliberately being poisonous towards you, if they're deliberately hurting you, if they're deliberately throwing knives at your back and being deliberately hurtful, then you need to remove yourself from that situation. Yeah, it's not okay to you to continue to be there. Don't sit there and think, you know what, if I just love them enough, they're going to heal and they're going to change. No. There needs to come a point with your own self-care, your own self-worth, your own self-value where you recognize, you know what, someone talking to me like that is not okay. I'm not okay to be treated like that, and I can leave that situation. I can tell them that it's not okay and that I will no longer be participating. In this example, what's happened for me is that I'm just not going to react at all to them. The line has been drawn in the sand, and the boundary that I'm setting is that I'm no longer going to participate. But I'm still sending love to that person. I'm still sending compassion to that person because they're hurting. Can you imagine saying some pretty awful things to people and how much you must be hurting in that process? All of us deserve more love, not less. Always. We always deserve more love, not less. More compassion, more kindness. And setting the boundaries at the same time for ourselves. The reason this is so important when it comes to other people is that we need to apply it to ourselves. Who here, give me a thumbs up, a shout out, some kind of comment if you have ever hurt yourself. If you have ever said mean things to yourself, if you have ever been nasty to yourself, if the internal chatter, your ego, has ever berated you, put you down, made you feel like crap. I'm pretty sure that every single one of you have had this experience when our own selves are making us feel awful. Vola has said, and know that their pain is so massive that it's spilling over. You're absolutely right. Yes, Vola. So when somebody has to feel like they need to be violent with their words or their actions for that matter, and they're aggressive, their pain is so huge that it's spilling over onto you. Still take yourself away from that situation. Still get yourself away from that. And from a distance, we can love and heal them and give them more compassion. Well, it's gone, absolutely, this is why we are here. Yes, because we are mean to ourselves. So when we're in pain, if we can come to the point where we can recognize that other people hurt us because they're in pain and they're suffering and they're hurting, we still want to set a boundary with them so that we do not remain in the toxicity of that relationship. But sending them love and compassion is part of the practice of what we're going to do for ourselves, of what's required for us. Because I don't know about you, more recently I've been getting some of that pain and vitriol from other people, but for the most part of my life, I've been the cruelest person to me in my head. Other people have done stuff to me, no doubt about it, but I've been the meanest. I've been the most awful. The things that I've said to myself in my head have been the most horrible things that I would never say to somebody else. I've been so nasty to myself in my life. in that moment, if then we reject ourselves, if we reject the part of us that is being mean and nasty, and we just like back them off and say you're horrible, then we're just perpetuating the nastiness within inside of ourselves. We, for ourselves, deserve more love, not less. We can also set boundaries for ourselves. So when the thoughts in my head are calling me an asshole and telling me that I'm mean, or reaffirming that I must be fake, that I am selfish, that I'm all just smoke and mirrors, in the words that other people have given to me, I can then almost transmute that just to say to myself, I hear the voices in my head and I say, hey bud, and I talk to myself, I talk to my ego. I highly recommend you start doing this. If you've done any of my courses or done a one-on-one with me, I teach you to talk to your ego. Talk to the most immature part of yourself, the nasty part. So my nasty part is coming up, yeah, you are selfish, yes, you are just fake, you are awful. Then I say to my ego, hello ego, I can hear that you're in pain. Thank you for showing me your pain. I love you. It's not okay for you to speak to me like that, and I know why you're saying it, and I love you, 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 and I always give myself more love, not less, particularly in the times when I'm giving pain. Hey Jasmine, lovely to have you here. Becca said, I cop it bad being in the front line of retail. I bet you do. And it's really hard to keep going. How can I take myself away from that hurt? Yeah, understand that it's just not about you, Beck. It's not about you. Okay, I know it feels personal and our ego wants to make it personal. It's just not. The reality is that so many people are in so much pain that they want to have an outlet somewhere. You see this on the internet really badly. People just post and comment, and they do it on call centers specifically, and in situations like retail and in customer facing, because we feel like we take the impersonality out of it. Like we feel like, oh, that's just the retail worker, the staff member. But we forget that they're people. Yeah, they're in pain and it's not about you. It really isn't about you. And in that moment where you're taking it on board, which I have recently, taking on board the feelings and the thoughts that are being permeated from somebody else's pain, have to understand that that's not my pain. I have to give it back. And I consciously make that decision back. I consciously make that decision. That's not my pain. I give it back, and I give myself more love first. First and foremost, I give myself more love, so then I have more love to give that other person energetically. And I energetically give love. I don't necessarily give it personally. I don't say to that person, I love you. Maybe that might be necessary, but in this example and your example, give yourself more love, fill your own cup first, and then give love to that other person. And set the damn boundary. If someone's being abusive to you, tell them no. If someone's being abusive to you, excuse me ma'am, excuse me sir, excuse me friend, excuse me lover, it's actually not okay for you to speak to me that way. And if you continue to speak to me that way, I need to remove myself from the situation. This takes practice, my people. If you're listening here, if you're still here with me, this takes practice, and it's bloody scary. I lived my life as a doormat. I lived my life as a people pleaser, and if somebody gave me negative feedback, I took it as gospel. I thought they're exactly right, without doing any self-reflection. But when we begin to know ourselves really well and we understand who we are, there's a real sense of going, I can differentiate between what is real feedback that I need to take on and what is someone's projection of their pain. And that takes practice. That's you getting to know yourself more and more and more and more, and also getting to know what it's like to differentiate yourself from your ego. Your ego is your small self. Your soul or your spirit is your big self, and that big self is the one that needs to lead the charge. What I've been saying to myself on a regular basis since receiving these comments is I give my heart permission to lead this dance. So what I'm consciously doing is allowing my bigger self, my heart, my soul, my spirit to lead at this point in time, because if I let my mind take over, it's just going to go round and round in circles. Oh my God, I'm such a fake, I'm such a thing, blah, 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 blah. It'll run. So I'm consciously giving love to my ego and then bringing myself down into my heart. If that means I ground, I get on grass, I meditate, I move my body, I do what I need to do to stay in my body and stay grounded in my soul and my heart. This is the most important thing. So notice what I'm doing here. I'm giving myself love. I'm giving myself love first. That's what I'm doing. And then what I'm doing is projecting that love outwards on the people who are causing me pain. Me first, cause them pain. And yes, in the comments that were given to me, selfishness, like that I was accused of being selfish and self-centered. And the reality is, my people, I am the center of my universe. Proudly. I'm never going to change that. I live my narrative through my life. I am me, and the only narrative that I have is me. I'm with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single damn day of my life, and so are you. It doesn't mean I'm selfish. Being centered in self, being that I know myself and I know myself well, selfish is when we don't take into consideration other people's feelings. Don't take into consideration, we're not compassionate, we're not kind, we're not giving love, we're just all out for me. I'm here for me and I'm here for other people. But it's me first. It is me first, because I need to make sure my cup is full before I can give to anybody else. And I want you to know that that's healthy. Serving you first so that you can serve others. I want you to highlight this. This is what I do. I serve me first so that I can serve others. Because if I don't have anything in my cup, if I'm not loving myself, then I have nothing to give to anybody else. I cultivate it internally and then cultivate it out. Jasmine, lovely to have you here. Thank you, Kelsang. Genyan, lovely. It's lovely to have you here. It's so wonderful. This is what I want you to know, that when people hurt you, they're hurting. If they're poisonous and they're directly giving you negative feedback, or being awful and mean to you, they deserve more love, not less. And first and foremost, you deserve more love, not less. So take yourself out of the situation. You do not need to put up with anybody abusing you, ever. Take yourself out of the situation. Remove yourself from the toxic situation. Set up the boundaries. Say no. Get yourself out of that situation and then project love onto those people. Because you getting caught up in your ego and trying to defend yourself is only falling into their trap of defense of ego. It becomes an ego battle. Stay in your heart. Stay in love. This is hard. Don't get me wrong. This requires a lot of practice. But keep practicing. Keep practicing at it. It's a lifelong journey. I'm still practicing it right now. Yeah, so as I've been here on my meditation mat, the little voices in my heads are coming up. Everything that I'm sharing with you, I'm practicing as we speak in my real life right now. And so I know that it's hard. I know that it takes practice. I know that it requires us to continue to dig deep into our heart and to our self-love. Yeah. I would love to hear your reflections upon this. If you've got any comments or anything, it's been such a wonderful experience to have you join me, so many of you live this morning. How amazing is this beautiful picture in the background? For those of you watching on the podcast, I have a picture on the background that says, "She believed she could, so she did." And it's a beautiful frame. I'll see if maybe I can put it in a thumbnail for you. I'm off. It's been, as I said, an absolute lovely to have each and every single one of you here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for continuing to support my work and what I do, and for listening to my rants. It's really wonderful to have you here. Big love to you. Share this if you feel compelled that somebody needs to hear it. And remember, happy self-loving.